Hi, everyone. We are excited to present our next panel to you guys. So, this is all about hospitality content because, yes, it is lovely for everyone to want to put in all this big, beautiful technology into a hotel. But if you don't have the content to put on that technology, what's it doing? Just sitting there, a black box. So, I'm very excited to introduce these next panelists. So, first of all, we got Brian Mazzaros, we have Alex Fortin, and I think we have Robin Perkins, who is having technical difficulties but will be joining us shortly. So, let's go ahead and start off. Brian, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about a little bit about what you do? What history do you have working within the hospitality realm?
Yeah, thanks, Steph. Thanks again for having me. Pleasure to be here. So OpenEye run a digital experience agency called OpenEye Global. I would definitely focus more on the content strategy and implementation of different visual technologies. We've been doing more work seeing over the years in working in hospitality, from doing large format display integration to more immersive storytelling applications, ways to add an element of ambiance and more branding into those environments that we've been seeing for those requests. Even recently too, is just more interest in creating more vibrant experiences within hotel environment. So
Awesome.
It's been interesting.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the panel. Thanks for hopping on. Alex, what about you? I know we were talking a little bit about like behind the scenes before we hopped on, and you're a seasoned veteran. So tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So, excuse me, I'm president of NDS Integration. We're an AV integrator with offices in Vancouver and now Seattle. So I don't know if that's out, but there you go. You got your lead. But yeah, I've been in the hospitality space since 2008, and so I've sold AV technology to hotels all across North America since 2008. A lot of in-room technology, and as my career progressed to where I am now, we do a lot of lobby spaces and digital signage and wayfinding, and really seasoned as far as hospitality and all the challenges that go into it. Price points and execution and mission critical, and also it has to be stunningly beautiful and architectural. So yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for being here. So let's hop in. So first of all, let's kind of break it down into some elements. What do you guys think are key elements to creating compelling content in hotel digital signage systems? And how do these come together, do you, in your opinions, to contribute to enhancing that guest experience? And whoever wants to take it first can go ahead.
Yeah, Alex, you want to fight over who goes first?
No, you go, man.
Duke it out.
right live. No, I'll start off because I'm definitely curious to hear Alex's opinion. I think, as we kind of look at it, I think placement really dictates how you approach strategy, and I think there's a couple ways of looking at it. Obviously, there's been a lot of focus on the exterior of hotels, I think recently, or at least the past couple of years, with LED being an architectural element. So some of that being for branding, some of that is maybe skewed more towards advertising. So that obviously that impacts the way that you approach creatively. If it's more architectural and more of an architectural brand element, then you can focus more on the brand. You can more of a scheme that is welcoming, that adds as a beacon for these destination hotels. If it switches to interior, that's again very different too, because there's so many different applications that I know Alex could elaborate even further on. From is it focused on wayfinding? Is it focused on greeting the guests? Is it focused more on ambiance? And that obviously kind of sets up in terms of what are you doing for digital content. Is it focused on placemaking? Is it branding? Is it trying to personalize the experience, so there's elements of welcoming a guest or recognizing a guest, and then also is it trying to help them sort of get coordinated with where they're at? Obviously that goes down more of a wayfinding kind of experience. So then you have interactivity, but I think it's important to understand what is the goal with the environment, with the hotel. What are they looking to add to the guest? What are they looking to add to the guest experience, or just add to the overall environment? If it's really creating that moment of wow in the lobby environment, then there's more opportunity to go creative that is beyond just promotional, or beyond just trying to upsell services, to where it's just more artistic and it's more of a, I have to have that selfie moment or that wow moment to share. So, it's hard to say it's one way or another. It's really that upfront kind of conversation and saying, what are you trying to, how are you supposed to impact that guest experience, that then dictates the path that we would take them for creative.
Yeah, I by the way, totally agree, and that's where I was going to take this. Is so, I think for me, the biggest conversation, apart from having really engaging content, is having context, and I think that's one of the things that people kind of put in, on the back burner that should be probably on the front burner. And I think that's what you're talking about, Brian, about having different elements and kind of what is the motive that you're trying to impact, right? So context is really important, and I think one of the keys is that we see hoteliers or hospitality companies use social content in-person environment, and it doesn't connect. It doesn't quite do it. You need to really be thinking through the psychology of what is that customer doing in that environment. What are they thinking about? What do they want to see? And then delivering relevant contextual content to them. And that delivery is really where, as an AV integrator, that's where we get involved, right? Is it LED? Is it touchscreen? Is it, a QR code to mobile app? Is it, menu boards? Is it interactive? Is it AR? But really, we need to understand from the ownership or the stakeholders, what are we trying to invoke here? Are we trying to invoke a feeling? Okay, great, lobby screens with excellent content and creating an ambiance for sure. Are we trying to get increase basket size? Or do we want to send people to the gift shop? Then can we do stuff around endless aisle and shopping through all the shirts and hats and all of the hospitality driven commercial products that you have in store already? So yeah, I think context is really the key to give a lot of thought about.
Another question that I have is, another big part of content is understanding who your audience is in order to deliver the best content in the best format to them. I was wondering if that is a struggle within the hospitality realm, because when someone is staying at a hotel, isn't it just like the type of person that is all over the board, especially depending on what type of hotel it is? Is it hard to then narrow down what type of content is going to perform for the audience, since the audience is just everybody?
I would say yes, it's a challenge. And I think, to add to another layer, the complexities, I think, what's the purpose of the hotel too? Because, you have, obviously, I'm speaking from experience being in a hotel room right now. You have, hotels that are really, they're not destination hotels. They're everyday business traveler hotels. And then you have the Disney-esque or the more like the rAVe hotels, where you are going because it's strictly a destination experience. And I think that kind of dictates a little bit in terms of what the purpose of the content could be. Where it's more skewed towards those adventures or those moments of just relaxation and calmness, where if you're a traveler, it skews more towards where can I get the quick coffee, how do I get back to the hotel, where give me some schedules or places that I can go have quick dinner at. So I think placement of where it's at definitely, sort of dictates aspects of that. And I'm curious, because I know Alex is going to have a much more articulate answer.
Come on.
Oh no, I'm setting you up. No, it's true. Than that. So
yeah, I think you're right. And I think hoteliers have a pretty good understanding of what kind of demographic they're catering to, right? I mean, business travel versus luxury travel versus, a kind of a mix of the, where you have in the burbs where it's more visiting family, in and out type of thing, or industrial areas where they're going to meet clients for business meetings. And I think they have a pretty good sense, but sometimes you almost need an outside view, right? Like last week I was in LA in a very nice hotel, and it was surprising to me that they didn't have any content around, one, traffic, and two, departures. I mean, it seems kind of like a no-brainer to me, right? Like, we know LA has bad traffic, and we know LAX is hard to get in and out of. So why not have that content displayed there for them? I think it's a lost opportunity, but I think the hoteliers, they have a pretty good sense, and really what it is maybe either engaging from an outside view to have someone articulate to them, because sometimes you're so close to the fire you can't really see it, or really giving some forethought about where you are in the world and what people are doing when they come to your hotel, right? So Is it business travel? Is it luxury travel? Is it a mixture of both? Is it you're visiting family? Are you on a vacation? And delivering relevant content and experiences that cater to that.
I think sorry, Steph.
No, go ahead.
Just to add what Alex was saying, I think the other component to this too is budget and bandwidth.
Oh, totally.
Creative too, because to Alex's point, I think the ones at the hotel would have the the best understanding as far as who's that audience, who are they catering it to, how does that change based upon seasons and holidays. But then the challenge comes to, if you want to go to that point of having these different content schemes or themes, there's a budget necessary to create or ongoing content throughout the course of the year. So it's one thing to go and say, well, this is your demographic, this is how it changes, build out the matrix and tailor it to it. But it's another thing realizing how much content you need in order to support each one of that. So I think that's where you see your challenges, to where it's sort of path of least resistance or path that stays within the budget, that I think some hotels end up following, just because of, I can only sort of look at this and say, well, who is my, I don't want to say most profitable guest, but like, who's the guest that I'm going to see the most return from?
Right.
That's where I'm going to put my energy towards.
We have a question that came in from one of the audience members, which I love, by the way. So you guys keep them coming. I love asking audience questions. So this is from Greg. He says, I stay in a lot of hotels, and a consistent problem with signage is stagnant content. Major chains have entertainment channels, but even that content is repetitive. Do hotel AV stakeholders take into account their frequent travelers and the people who are maybe going to be seeing this quite a bit,
Yeah, great question. I think it kind of touches on what Brian was saying, right? Is that you need to be able to deliver relevant content and have it updated. And it's great to have nice looking content, but again, not to beat a dead horse here, but context. Yeah. If the context is, hey, we have a regular demographic of people that are continually coming back, they know that information. Like they have those records of that information. I'm a Hilton Gold member. They know that I'm coming quite a few times. Delivering relevant content, which means refreshing it, keeping it live. It's the same for, not to go off on a tangent, but, background music in restaurants is the same thing, or even Christmas music during, in the lobbies. There's people that work there where they hear the same songs on repeat after 3 hours. And instead of it being uplifting or engaging or helpful, it becomes the opposite, right? So giving thought to that as well, that while good intention can actually become a detriment to what you're trying to achieve. So keeping it fresh.
Yeah, good point. So continuing on with the evolution of AV technology, it's actually, we're kind of living in a really weird realm of where things are happening really quickly right now with AI, with machine learning. We're going at a really rapid pace. So with all of this evolution that's currently happening, what innovative content delivery methods have you guys seen implemented lately? And what do you think will have that lasting power within the hospitality space?
Yeah, do you want me to take that one, Brian?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. There's no doubt that LED is making an impact, right? And from a display technology, it's probably the most impactful since flat panel. And for a lot of people, you need to figure out, you either believe that people want bigger and better, or you don't. And if you're on the bigger and better scale of things, then LED is certainly the way to do it. And if you look at implementations, I know it's kind of off tangent here again, but if you look at the Sphere and all of the emotions that's invoked when you go into a space like that, you can't help but kind of go, yeah, LED probably, yes. And maybe there's a way to tone it down so you don't feel like you're in Times Square, but by using relevant, again, content and that type of thing. But LED certainly seems to be one, and I think AI will definitely become a bigger part of the conversation as we look to use AI to benefit the guest, right? So areas I can see that moving into is guest directory, and instead of using guest directory either on display or printed out or kiosk mode, It's really probably going to be, a QR code to a guest directory that tells me, hey, where's the closest, steakhouse? Where can I take my family at 1 a.m. in the morning because we just landed and get food? What time is the restaurant open? Can you make us reservations? So I think that's going to become a bigger component, and I think that is going to really elevate the hotel experience, is being able to have that, again, relevant, quick, customer service driven information.
And I think adding to what Alex said, I mean, I think spot on, and also the fact is they have that data, that exists, and I think you also have guest recommendations that are out there through their own site or through an Expedia plugin. So bringing that more into the forefront is going to be huge, and serving that up and allowing the guests to kind of experience it in the way other guests have experienced it too is going to be critical. So there's a lot of opportunity that exists there. I think some are starting to grasp and understand how to actually visualize that.
Right.
Just to add to that, I mentioned that I was on a trip recently. Instead of going to typically where I go TripAdvisor to research hotels, because I'm a research nerd, I actually went to ChatGPT and said, what are the top 10 hotels in LA that are good for kids?
Okay.
And it spit out 10 results, and the first one that it landed on was the first one I booked. And
Nice.
so just to kind of give, just to add some more context to the AI conversation, it's certainly, we're going to see more, I think, more of that type of thing evolve. And using AI as the trusted advisor. We know that sometimes some hotels will be excellent but not on TripAdvisor because they don't pay, or Yelp, or any of those other things. So being able to tie in AI as a trusted advisor to give you good advice while you're there is going to be, I think, going to become a bigger piece of the play.
That's a good point. So when hotels are working on their content that they're going to be showcasing throughout the property, how do you guys recommend the balance be between hotel identity and branding and pushing that brand identity with diverse and engaging content? Because you can't just put your logo on the screen and call it a day. Like there has to be some balance here. And where is that balance?
I think some would disagree on you on that statement, but no. But I know it's a really good question, and it's a really good point. And I wish there was a direct answer for it, because I think in some cases you still do have budget that dictates to what extent they want to go.
Right.
Alex had mentioned before, and there's also a point too, is how creative do you go? I think LED is just one of these unique display technologies where creativity can run wild with sizes and shapes. But then the reality is that from a design, creative standpoint, if it's a unique shape, that means it's custom and unique content. So then that also becomes somewhat of a challenge. I mean, not entirely a challenge, but a challenge just to think for the brand itself, for that. So I think there's different aspects of how you would approach that. But from an architectural standpoint, I think it's a huge loss if a hotel doesn't recognize that it can add some element to it, especially exterior too. I think there's a lot of buildings that are trying to differentiate themselves and struggle to do that. And creative lighting is just not enough. And sometimes you need that, wow moment that stop you in the tracks to bring you to it. I mean, obviously, I don't say Vegas. I mean, it's an obvious place. You see a lot that are implementing there, but it's not just Vegas anymore. It is LA. It is in San Diego. It is in other cities that, these brands and these, if it's a high profile Marriott property or if it's a Hilton property, are bringing LED in there as an element, but are looking at that balance too, that what's enough to where they can get a message across and what's enough where it still comes across as it's like a brand element. And I think the same is being said too for lobbies. I mean, that's an area too where I think there's a lot of creative freedom because you can see more justification. You want that moment you come in and you drop the bags and you're just in awe of what you're looking at. And that balance too, where you have sort of great architecture that matches up with the use of digital that then complements that through some creative designs or, even a little bit more, artistic approach to it, or as we've been doing in some anamorphic content, to kind of add that extra layer of depth into a space that otherwise doesn't have it. So
Yeah, really good point.
Yeah, well put. I think one of those things is you got to kind of step outside yourself and understand, branding isn't everything. People are going to know where they're at. It's about invoking an experience, right? When you get the invoice at the end of your stay, you're going to remember where you're at. Don't worry. So, invoking memorable experiences is really what it comes down to. And I hope there's hoteliers on this listening, because there's certainly a way to do that. For every demographic, including business travelers, there's a way to invoke an experience for a business traveler. Sometimes it's content driven, such as flight information displays or traffic reports, or while you're leaving, here's where the Uber drop off is in case you don't know. Hey, make sure you leave extra time for dropping off your rental car because it's a bus away from where you need to get to the airport. There's a way to invoke experience that doesn't. It can be big, expensive LED lobby displays, but also can be great content from companies like OpenEye and Brian Mazzaro. So there's lots of variety to it.
We got a comment from an audience member that was very much echoed everything that you guys said. He said, hotel signage tends to have way too much branding. I know what hotel I'm staying in. I don't need a repetitive digital reminder. Give us updated local information, weather, traffic, flights, dining. So yeah, literally everything that you guys said. Yeah. But that's true. But it's hard because you would think hoteliers, the branding is everything. They have to let go of that a little bit. And I'm guessing that's not always easy to get them to let go of that.
I think it's also dictated by the brand standards, right? So there's only so much play that they have. Mm-hmm. If you look at Best Western, it's here's your display. This is the content that's being delivered. Right. But if you look at other properties, you have a little bit more leeway and flexibility. JW, Marriott's, and Fairmonts, and Marriott's in general. Just you have a little bit more. Hilton, you have more ability to kind of cater the guest experience.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Steph.
No, go ahead.
I think the other side to it too is that I think there's blinders on to you, because I feel sometimes when groups are making the investment in technology, they don't have a conversation with Alex. They don't have a conversation with myself to just even understand and saying that this is what it gets you out of the box. But there's a way to accommodate branding and still be functional.
Yeah.
Still bring in everything that we've been talking about and deliver that to the guest and still reinforce the brand. But there's the other part too, which I think was lost about the brand. We all think about the physical attributes about the brand, what we see, but there's aspects that make up the brand, which is the experience. And so that's even more critical too, because a bad experience is going to deter you from coming back to that brand, whether how polished mm-hmm. or that logo looks. That's not enough to sell you. It's the experience you have with the brand, the property is what sells you. And I think sometimes there's that disconnect and say the technology, it doesn't have to be a reinforcement of the brand identity. It has to add to the experience. And that's where, everything that Alex had talked about, or what I've been saying, it's all about adding to the guest experience, which then builds brand equity. And so it doesn't always have to be this physical representation of the brand. It's how do I help you have a more enjoyable experience, take something away from it, and then wanting to come back to that because I've enjoyed all aspects of my stay with that brand.
Yeah, well put, Brian.
Very well put. So do you guys want to talk about specific examples where strategic content deployment has done really well and significantly impacted guest satisfaction and loyalty? Do you guys have any specific examples off the top of your heads?
I mean, I can talk to some of the clients that we work with. I'll say that where we've had a couple examples, one technology driven and another one that is more artwork driven. So one of the hotels we work with here in Vancouver is the Fairmont Pacific Rim. It's probably the best hotel in Vancouver. And they quite often have art exhibits inside that space, which is perfectly intertwined with what that brand is all about and what that hotel is all about. So there's an example of a content strategy, right, that you could use, but isn't necessarily a digital driven content, but it could be. It could be, a Van Gogh art, installation, mm-hmm. for example, that ties in with the context of that hotel. Another one that we've done in the past is we did a very large indoor direct view LED wall. It was about 63.5 feet wide by 10 foot tall. And they put this inside of a ballroom. And the context on that is that they wanted to be able to bring the ability of having a remote wedding, but local. So instead of actually sending your entire family to Tuscany, they would have the video wall show the background of Tuscany, so that when people were, taking photos or what have you from there, that you could then almost be there. And it ties into the ability to use that direct view wall for many other capacities. But again, it's about invoking an experience and bringing it local, and really kind of giving something that's totally different than what is typical. So, just two examples.
Those are good ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, I mean, I think the recent one, which was an out of this world experience award winner with Talking Stick Resort that we worked on, and it was a challenging one, because anytime that you're working with a hotel that also doubles as a casino, you're trying to separate the two, to where it's the aspect of coming here and having an enjoyable time since it's a resort, and then trying to create content that sort of takes you away from that the noise of a crowded casino floor. And so with this, there is, and if you're not seeing it, there's plenty of links out there and photographs of it, but the challenge is trying to create a content strategy that would stop people in their tracks as they came into it. So there's elements of anamorphic content, and that takes on an opportunity to, not for promotion, but to introduce these subtle relationships that the casino has with spring training, to waste management open, to other parts that come across as not really, buy tickets today. It's more of this 3D object that's appearing to come through the center of the area. And then also as the casino and hotel started to kind of morph and go beyond it, then it started to take on elements of being more atmospheric. So Starry Night or would play to the cultural aspect of Talking Stick and their roots with the tribe. So that's where it went beyond. But it was that challenge of how do you have people sort of separate the idea that there's a resort element to this complex as well. And so there definitely were a lot of nice selfie moments that we saw, or just a lot of moments of people just stopping before they went to the right and put their dollars in the casino. But still, I like to think that we added an element of calmness before they proceeded on to the madness of the floor.
And shameless plug about that, you were doing an AV IRL with us on launch about that on July 25th at 2 p.m. Eastern. So definitely, y'all all have your launch accounts. If you're watching, go ahead and register for this. An AV IRL is basically an in-depth, live, deep dive case study that Brian is doing with Megan Dutta. And you'll be able to see a lot of these assets. You'll be able to see the videos, the photos of what this looks like, because it's actually incredible. So definitely go ahead and register for that. Wanted to go ahead and plug that in there too.
Thanks, Steph.
Yeah, no problem. So next question, we've kind of covered this a little bit already, but let's kind of talk about some common challenges and pitfalls that hotels face when it comes to content strategy, and maybe some ways in which they can overcome them.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, from my experience, one of the most common pitfalls is that they're so driven for mobile and online that turning that switch on to what happens, inside the hotel is quite challenging, right? Like I said, sometimes you're so close to the fire you can't see it.
Yeah.
And so being able to take a step back and go, okay, well, what are guests doing here, and what would I want to do here? And it unfortunately it can be quite hard. And so sometimes it's like, we don't have time to think about that. Let's just repurpose some social content and splash it up on some screens and kind of go out from there. And I think that it's a missed opportunity. I really do. I think it's a missed opportunity to create very loyal customers that, when you can speak to what they want in a way that's, resonates, you're going to create a lot of loyalty. But I would say the biggest challenge, like I said, is turning that switch on to, okay, we got great branding, but the content and context needs to be relevant to inside the hotel.
Yeah, and I think to add to what Alex said is agree with that entirely. And I think the missed opportunity is that they have all this, and it's not as if they're unaware of how to deliver that, but they deliver it outside of the hotel. And I think a lot of brands do a great job of encouraging you to go to the hotel, but then they don't sell or re-represent or find a way to visualize everything they use to get you there. And then you're begging for them to take it one step further. They have all that, and I think that's the part that's frustrating. And the ones that do recognize it, it becomes very easy to start to develop a strategy because they have aspects of it already figured out. And there's a team there that you can work with to extend their reach, have it adjusted to the point of engagement. So that's the point that I find frustrating. It's just one more step to connect it.
Brian, I totally agree. And in a lot of ways, I do understand the psychology because, really they're sales driven, right? Sales driven organizations.
Sure.
So they want to get the sale in and get them in the door. And one of the things that I think is maybe left behind is, when you're doing your marketing calculations, is your cost of client acquisition and the long-term value, right? The LTV. And while it costs you a lot to get them in the door, you got to pay advertising, marketing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Once they're in the door, it's cheaper to keep them. So if you create an experience when they're in the door as well, it's cheaper to have them long-term as clients than it is to continually fill up the funnel to pop new people in.
So how do you guys foresee the integration of emerging tech like AR and VR influencing content creation and in delivery and hospitality environments?
Yeah, I think Alex and I are both probably trying to think of what's the best answer. And, I thought about this too, because, Steph, you posed some great questions that would frame this conversation. And honestly, when I saw the AR VR one, I was kind of like, I need to do a little research myself. And
yeah, that's fair.
And not unaware of it. And I'm sure, Alex, you probably have better examples to cite. But and I see it, and always, I think even prior to this too, is that some of those technologies serve more back of house opportunities. In doing research, I saw where Hilton has done some great work in using VR for training purposes. And then I think obviously we're all familiar that there's a lot of brands that do a great job in doing VR experiences or AR experiences that are on the web that again help you get to there. So I've only seen, and I apologize for not knowing more, but only seen enough that I think serves a purpose of either back of house or helping you get there or making that decision from a web perspective.
Yeah, I haven't seen any super fun examples, but I haven't looked that hard either. But I would agree. I would say wayfinding is definitely an opportunity for for AR, VR. But I also think that if you have a historic property, what an amazing opportunity to take you back in time, right? And again, create a virtual experience of 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So or maybe it's directional. Maybe it's you're somewhere next to a big amusement park. You can virtually walk to where you need to go, or it's directions on how to pick up an Uber or where the restaurant is. I think there's tons and tons of opportunities. Again, they need to be contextual and they need to be relevant to your guests, but there's certainly lots. There's probably more opportunities than there is budget for it.
That's probably fair. But the wayfinding thing is honestly so real because we're getting ready for InfoComm back in Vegas, right? And I have gotten lost in the West Gate every year. I've stayed there a million times and somehow I end up lost and not knowing where the Uber pickup is every time. So imagine my power. Imagine how much time I would have in my day if it would just be virtually just should do this. And I'd be great.
And so, Elvis was walking with you.
Yes.
Think about it. Think about it. Yeah. Come on, baby.
Exactly.
I want that. Can you do that? I want him to say that as you turn left.
Yeah. This is recorded, by the way.
Okay,
so We have this forever now. So, okay, we're winding down here. We have about 1 more minute. So I wanted to just ask you both, where can people connect with you after they log off? Are you active on LinkedIn? How do people reach out? Brian, you first.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, just Brian Mazzaros, all over the place in posting. Also on X as well, the OpenEye Global name, as well as my own Brian Mazzaros, and even that follows suit over onto Instagram as well. So.
Awesome. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, active on LinkedIn, quite active on X as well. You can find me there at the Alex Fortin with a 3 instead of an E. I guess the Alex Fortin original one was taken, but pretty active on X. And yeah, if you really want to find me, you can probably find me at an MLS game with my daughter, or out visiting our many clients that we have. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for joining on this panel. I've appreciated your time, and I know our audience has too. So thanks again, you guys.